Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hello and welcome back. It is the very first week. It actually is the very first day of August in 2016, and it's time for continuing work on the Starfleet tug. I gotta remember to look into the lens, not into the screen. I've noticed watching lately that I've had this distracted look, and it's because I'm looking at the little screen. We are continuing work on the tug, and I have already started very preliminary stuff here on a Monday morning. Let me show you what we're doing. Firstly, as you'll notice, I have stripped it all apart again. I had it all nice and put together and mocked up this weekend to show the lights off and all of that. So the first thing I do is take that all apart. And then I am getting ready to do some other work. First thing I did was put a flat coat on this dashboard. As you can see, what that did is it blended in those decals very nicely, and it kind of knocked down the glossy sheen on some stuff that shouldn't have been there. So that's done. I have put on the other end of the spectrum, I have put a gloss coat on this part. And you say, well, you know, it's not really going to have a glossy finish. Why would you do that? Well, because there are lots of decals. Decals need to go over a glossy surface. It helps get rid of the bubbles that are trapped underneath, and you don't get that silvering, because silvering is caused by putting a decal over an irregular surface. And if you have flat paints, they tend to put a tooth or an irregular surface on your kit, which is all good and well until you try to put a decal on it. So you need to gloss under your decals. Most of you people already know this. I say you people, I don't mean to be derogatory. Most people who build models a lot know this, but for those who don't, hey, it's a public service. You make your surface nice and glossy. You put your decal over that, and then after your decals are all dried in, you hit it with a flat. Not only does that lock the decal in, but also gives you the finish that you want to have at the end. So this has got a glossy surface on it, particularly right here, because this is covered by one big long decal, and I don't want any problems with that. So I doubled down on the gloss for that. And then there's a big decal here. Let me show you on the sheet. It is this guy right here is one big decal, and it goes right back here. So want to have good glossiness underneath that, and they got a big number that goes there. So getting this ready for decals is the first thing, and I'm not going to be touching this part for a while, so I can hit it with the gloss, put it aside, let that get nice and cured in, and then when it comes time to add it to the kit, all I've got to do is touch up this bottom seam. So it's aside, waiting for that, and then somewhere in the middle we have this, which is the big chunk. And like I said, I stripped everything off of it, and it is got a coat of satin on it, which is, you know, somewhere in between. It's not a heavy gloss, it's not a flat. Why use satin? Well, like I say, it's a good mid-range, because when it comes to putting flat on it, I won't have to put as much flat on it to get it to the final finish that I want than the heavy gloss. It's just a good mid-range. Sometimes when you use a heavy gloss, if I'm trying to weather on that, not enough of the pigment sticks to it, and I end up putting it on and wiping it straight off. Whereas if you put flat on it, and then you put a wash over it, and then too much pigment sticks to it, and you can't really get rid of enough of it. So I find that satin is a good middle of the road. It's like I say, it's shot right down the middle. So this is drying. Once I have given this a good shot at drying, I will start coming in and doing the weathering. There's really two types of weathering. First is the overall, get it into the seam, get it into the cracks, and wipe it off, that type of weathering. Then I'll hit it with another satin coat, and then I go in with the airbrush and actually put in scorches and whatnots. So while things are drying, I'm going to go off and do something else. And here you can see what happens when you start to weather the bottom of the tugboat. I'm using a diluted version of the Comart smoke, or transparent smoke, like I use for everything in my life. It's it's a dessert topping, it's a floor wax. Just brush some on, give it a minute or second or two, and then wipe it off. And look what it does. It sticks into all the panel lines like you want it to. And it gives a slightly scuffed up version of the paint job. Now, when it's useful, you can overdo it like anything, so you got to be careful. But what you do if you overdo it is you go back in with the base color and you spray a mist of that back over top of it, and it kind of brings the overall tone and body color back up. But using this liquid and using it nice and diluted, it wants to hide in the recesses, which is exactly where you want it to go. In the nooks and crannies and all of that kind of stuff. So you smear it on liberally, and then you wipe it down, just like any other wash. Look at that. And try doing that with a fine brush and a steady hand. You can't do it. So I'm going to give this a couple coats of this and go back over it again, wipe it down, go back over it, wipe it down, that kind of stuff. And then you lock it in with a coat of clear over top of it. That takes care of all. Since your overcoats are lacquers, they're not going to be water soluble like the acrylics are, so you can kind of build up layers of it. You lock it in with the lacquer, you lock with the lacquer, and you paint with the acrylic. So see, I want to put some, and then after all of this is done, said and done, you go back in with the airbrush and kind of put in general smudging and stuff. This is just for hiding in the cracks. So it's tough to do with only one hand, so I'm gonna, and it's kind of time sensitive. You want to be doing it, wiping it on and putting it, putting it on and wiping it off as rapidly as possible. So I'm going to put the camera down. Okay, I think I've got this at least the first coat of weathering done on the body. Now what I would like to do is let this dry for a bit, and take a little bit of a step away from it, and then I'll come back and see what parts I still like and what parts I want to correct, and then hit it with some spots with the top coat, or where is it, this mixed up color of very light beige, cream color, just on some spots where what happens is if the satin spray isn't on uniformly enough and you hit the flat paint undercoat, the flat paint sucks up the Comart and does not allow it to be wiped off, and then you get areas sort of like this that are a little bit too dark, where it sucked up too much of it and I couldn't wipe enough off. I can go back in and mist a color of that beige over top of it to, I'm just going to call it beige as a shorthand, to brighten it back up. And then I will let that dry, and then put a clear coat over it. And then I think it's decal time. After the decals are all in, then I will do the last bit of scorching and weathering, because some of that needs to happen over top of the decals. Then we'll be caught up to pretty much where this top piece is. And actually, I think I can even start on the decals on the top piece now, while I'm waiting for this to cure, or to dry in, or just for me to step away from it for a bit. So that's what we're going to do. Let's put this aside and then get to the top and start decaling. Actually, I thought better of that, and I thought maybe that the next thing I need to do is to go ahead and do the top coat of tan over this, and then I know this is a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you don't need to know the thinking process, but if I go ahead and catch this up to where I have the top coat on it, and then I can put a gloss coat over all of that when it's dry, then the whole thing will be ready to decal all at once. And I have a feeling that once I get my decaling tools out, I'm going to want to do as much of that as possible, and not just have to break those tools out again. So it'll let me clean up stuff and pull out. It's just more efficient working. So I'm going to do the brightening up on this first. Okay, the time has come, the walrus said. I use that every once in a while, I'm sorry. It's time to decal. and I like doing decals because it's like instant finish. And what I've done is I've lined up all the decals that I need for this particular plane of the top, and then I've got the two. This is what goes on the side, and that's what goes on that side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this stripe. Start with the big one, get it out of the way, and then I'll put these littler ones on as I go. So these are all still the homemade decals, so let's see how well they go on. Well, I got the stripe down, and that was a bit of a chore, so I figured the next thing I should do is probably this nice big one here, and then that's the other big chore, and they can only get easier after that. So one thing I have learned, do not cut. I mean, you can cut around your decal as much as you want to, but try not to cut where there is any ink, because if you trim it too closely and you cut where there is ink, that ink comes out. I think what the spray does is encapsulate the ink and from your inkjet printer. And if you cut that encapsulation, then you run the risk of that toner coming out onto your kit. So cut very close to them, but don't cut into them. And here is the top of the tug decaled with a combination of the kit decals and my own custom decals. That's working best. I realized just because I had made the custom decal doesn't mean I had to use the custom decal. The ones that came with the kit, perfectly fine. It's just the ones that were missing from the kit and the number that I needed to recreate. So this one is from the kit. No reason to use that big one from my my set. So let's do the sides now, and then we'll put this whole top part to the side. Okay, all the decals are on the top part. I have done that horrible thing of putting the Salva set on them. They're going to get all puckery, and I can't stand to watch it. So I'm going to go away and come back when everything is flattened out, because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to want to touch it, and you don't want to touch it when they're soft and melty. Okay, we're on the bottom now doing some decaling, and if you look on this reference picture, you'll see that there are a blue million of those little dash things. Those became popular about the time they were doing the Millennium Falcon over at ILM, and they would just put those little dashes on everything. Well, since ILM, I believe, since it's Bill George, I'm assuming it's ILM did the miniature for Star Trek. They went ahead and went nuts on those little dashes, and to tell you the truth, I'm not going to put all of them on there. I think it's busy work, and I don't really think it adds anything to the kit. George must have thought so too, because he didn't include nearly enough to do all of those in his decal sheet. So I may put a couple prominent ones, maybe the ones up front. I may put those on, but after that, I'm just not gonna worry about all the little dash, especially since I'm not going to see the underneath of this very much once it's on the stand. As you can see, I've got the main ones here on the bottom, and I'll use up whatever little dashes I have from the sheet that I made, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go out of my way to put a bunch of them on there. And those 4 little squares were the last bits that needed painting. I didn't have any decals for those. Easier to just mask them off and paint them. And with that, we are going to call it a night. Very productive day today. Got all the decals on, got the bottom of this weathered. I get the feeling I'm starting to rush through things, so I need to put it aside. But I got the weathering on the bottom. I may lighten some of that up again tomorrow. Again, the decals are all on. I'm going to let those dry overnight before I put a top coat on that. And the top is in the other room. Let me go get it. There, the top of old number 6 is in. And as you can see, it needs to be flattened because the decals are still shiny on that, and they need to dry overnight before I cover them with a flat coat tomorrow. What you didn't see off screen was that I replaced this. It was starting to smear a little bit. That was me, because I don't know that much about making decals yet, so make sure it had extra coat of the lacquer on it this time, so that the toner or the ink wouldn't have a chance to run. So replaced that, and I replaced this one for the same reason. The ink was starting to run. So easy enough when you're making your own decals to replace what you don't like. There's that side, again with the little dashes. These ones were slightly larger, so those were on the decal sheet, but just these little sets of dashes, I think enough's enough. So this is to the stage where it is ready for the final top coat. Dashboard was finished earlier today. Can't put that in quite yet. This is the troublesome joint. We're going to have that joint to massage once everything is back in place, and that's just the nature of the beast. And touching up this joint here, I've decided if I can find one, I'm going to put an inline switch on the cord itself, so that you know, it's one of those little things you see on lamps that's just in the cord. Since there are no circuits on this, so to speak, everything is either off or on. I really only need one switch on it, so putting an inline will be good. Once everything has been top coated, then I can do the final wiring and button this thing up and finally put the canopy in. That'll be probably the last big challenge. So until tomorrow when we pick this back up, I say good night and good tug to you. Well, Heidi ho there, neighbors. It is Tuesday morning, and we are down to the final countdown on this. All of the decals that I put on yesterday have had overnight to dry, so it's time to start with this section, and we are going to, well, I can yank it off, it's on there tight now. We're starting with this section. We are going to put a flat coat on it to get rid of all the carrier film, hopefully. And then we're left with this section where I think all I need to do is maybe lighten up some of that scorching that's a little too much, and then we'll be ready to cover it with a flat coat, and it will be done. And the last thing to do after that is final construction and to solidify the wiring. We could be looking at being finished with this afternoon. I just completed a little bit of scratch building on the back, dressing this area up a little bit. Is it canon? No. Is it on the actual kit? No. Do I care? Very little. I wanted to dress this up a bit. It was a bit plain. Plus I had sanded away a lot of the detail inadvertently when I was cleaning up the part and getting it ready to go on there, because the detail was very fine and it was raised, as opposed to a lot of the detail here that is recessed, and you still get to keep it if you sand. This was raised detail, raised plating, and you can still see the outline of it a bit. It's weird, even though I've painted it. I don't know whether it's resin leaching or what, but these little gloss bits you can see indicate where the plating used to be. So I wanted to cover up some of that. So now all I have to do is paint it in to match the rest, and I put a couple spots there on the bottom as well, just to give that tail a little bit of beef. It was kind of the unloved portion of this whole kit. Well, here you can see the top has been flat coated, and something happened that I'm not quite enamored with, but it is what it is, I'm afraid. And that is, when I put the flat coat on it, it kind of milked over these black areas. All of the areas of the decals that are supposed to be black are reading as a milky black, and I think it's because of the flat coating that I put that was in the spray in the Krylon flat clear. Not wild about it, but the only way around it is to put a gloss coat, and I don't want to live with a gloss coat or a satin coat. But you see, if I get it wet, it turns darker, but that's not how it's going to be. So, yeah, okay, I'll live with it. But this part of it is done, and I have messed up this a bit. I just need to do one more pass with the transparent smoke, and then I'll be ready to put a flat coat on all of this, and then all that will be left to do is final construction. So let's go do that. It's kind of tough to tell, but it has been suitably flattened. So the flat spray is drying on this, and before I lay my head on my pillow tonight, what I will do, and this is many hours from now, is I think I will glue this in tonight. Glue the dash in. And then first thing at the crack of tomorrow, I will put these in, or I might even get to that this evening, who knows. Okay, I've gone ahead and glued in the engine modules. This is still Tuesday evening, by the way. Glued in the engine modules. That finally finishes off that back end. And what is next is to glue in the front console. And this is where we're going to leave it tonight. If I do anything more, I won't have anything left to do tomorrow. Tomorrow we finish wiring. We put the pilots in. We put the top part on. We break a bottle of champagne over its bow and call it done. Okay, I'm starting to get bugged by this. It's Tuesday night. I'm getting ready to close up, and I'm getting bugged. It's exasperating. I'm trying to put flat finishes on things. Clear flat finishes, by definition, should be clear. They shouldn't be cloudy. They shouldn't be muddy. They should be clear, but flattening the colors. And every time I put something on that's purported to be flat, it's giving me this milky finish. I don't want that. I want clear flat. I wanted to put a clear over, this is supposed to be a clear flat over this back wall, and it turned it to milk. I'm going to have to repaint this now, darken it back down, because innocently enough, I was expecting a flat finish. So let's repaint this back wall. Good morning, it is Wednesday, and I am working on wiring today, trying to drown my bitter disappointment over the muted colors there, and I had to repaint that back wall last night. Just the horrible, shabbily way I was treated by that flat, supposedly clear paint. So I am getting ready to do the final wiring. I've got the base. I've got base with felt underneath it, wire coming up. I am putting one of these little inline switches in here, the type you normally see on a lamp. Since everything's going to be on the same switch, I just got to put it on the cord. So yeah, it's designed to be screwed into place, and that's it, but I'm going to go ahead and try to solder these connections to make them more secure. So a lot of boring soldering work to do, and then we will be ready to mount that to that. Okay, the switch is wired in. I've had that light on just as a temporary tester. Okay, we've got power to the pole. Now we just need to put the ship on it. Everybody who's been here recognizes this stage. It is the not pretty but it works stage. All the lights are in the back. Lights here are working. Let's see, the underside lights are working. And all that is left to do is to attach this top part. Voila, everything is wired up. Now I have one odd extension going out here, and that's to tie into the top part that I am not quite ready to put in place yet, but that'll go there, so I can neaten this kind of stuff up and tape it down, and I guess get ready for the attachment and the canopy, which is really all that's left. And here it is. Lights are all on. Everybody seems to be happy. Last thing to do is to put this on top of that and squeeze the canopy. Actually, put the pilots in and then squeeze the canopy in. So, because the pilots can't go in, I mean a canopy. Oh, it's a puzzle box, because the pilots have to go in before the canopy can go in. Because the canopy and the top kind of have to come down at the same time. Then I've got to touch up the joints on either side. So, wish me all kinds of luck, because this is the squeaky bum time. This is the make it or break it seam. Okay, I believe this is it. The time has come to put the top on. Now I kind of have to, and that means also the canopy goes in. I have to make sure that I am completely happy with what's going on in the canopy because, or in the cabin, because there is no time left to change anything. Just turn the light back on, sorry. And there's back on. To change anything. So am I happy with the pilots? Am I happy with their position? Do I want to put backs on the chairs? You know, I was thinking about putting backs on the chairs, and then I realized if you put backs on the chairs, you can't really swivel them. So I'm going to take the position that those were supposed to be stools of a sort, or benches. So they are sitting on little benches. So I'm going to go around the rounds one more time, make sure everybody's happy, and then I am going to make the final joins up. And here she is, ladies and germs. The top is glued on. It ain't coming off. That ain't coming off. What I need to do now is dress up this joint and make it all clean and purty. It's a long joint to be sure, but it needs to be purtified. The last bit of detail for today, because I need to let this putty dry all night, is the putty along the sides. Now don't mind that, that's just a spacer that's tucked in behind to keep the putty off of the canopy. Same thing with this side. Tiny touch of putty down the side that I can sand away and then touch up with the paint. So we're at the stage where we need to leave it alone. Okay, I got the first coat of primer on this seam on both sides, and I will let that cure good and long before I sand it and see whether it still needs any putty. But that's the first step in getting this all blended in. Morning, it is Thursday, what promises to maybe even be the last day of this build. Who knows? I'm working on the front seam now that the top is on and the canopy is in. I've got a couple coats of coat of primer, and you know, a couple passes of Bondo and primer on the sides, and side there and side there, and I'm putting a little bit on the front because the sides went so well that I want to even everything up. So I've got a little snippet of Bondo on that seam on the front. So taking very good care not to get anything on the precious canopy. So I'll let that dry for a few hours and then sand it and try to get everything to where I can sand or paint the ivory color, the tan color, all around there and get it touched up and maybe get done today. Okay, the primer has had ample time to dry. So now I'm going to try the first coat of the tan color and see how many coats of that it takes. And here she is with all the tape removed and the lights on. All I have left to do is to dirty up this band of beige here. I think that was a song in the 60s, the band of beige. Anyway, I'm going to let this dry overnight and do that. So for all intents and purposes, this is the final video and this is the finished kit. Let me turn the lights off so you can see. Yes, you're seeing the glare of the cockpit. But there you go. And there's the lighting of the back. So I think the next thing to do would be to put this on a green background and take some pictures. But for the purposes of this video, let me try changing the color balance here for a second. And that's not much better, but once you turn off that fluorescent light, it does a weird thing as far as the color balance goes, the white balance. But there you go. I've got the pilots in there. One is doing his job and the other is ignoring him completely. Perhaps they've had a bit of a lover spat in the morning and I just don't want to look at you for now. But you can see that front edge just needs to be dirtied down to the rest of the, but there's the bottom red beacon and all of these. But that's the view right there from the screen cap of I guess it's, yeah, it's the Voyage Home. It's the end of Voyage Home where they're following the tug to the Enterprise A. There's the side beacon. I still hate that I missed those backlights, but what are you going to do? Let's put this on the turntable here. There. Give it a nice turnaround. Very nice. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Like I said, short week. It's only Thursday night and I'm done because tomorrow at the crack of, oh no, it's morning, I have to get up and drive down to Columbia, South Carolina for the IPMS show, which is this weekend, where I get to see modelers who are in a league of their own. I envy these guys. I cannot do what they do. They do incredibly meticulously accurate work, and that's just not what I'm in the hobby for. I'm kind of an abstract painter, I guess, when it comes. I try to be a realist, but you know, I don't get down to that level. So maybe I'll pick up some new tricks, some tips, and some supplies. You know, maybe I can get some pick up some supplies that I'm running low on. So it'll be a fun weekend. I get to meet up with some folks from Wonderfest that also go to this. So it should be a good tonic for the nerves, as it were. So until next week, when who knows what we'll be working on, because this will be finished. I'll show you the wrap up on it with final weathering, but we'll be starting something completely new next week, and I don't know what that's going to be yet, and that's kind of an interesting place to be, because usually I have these things planned out way in advance. So until next week, when it's as big a mystery to you as it is to me, as it is to you. So have a good weekend, have a good week, be good to each other, be kind, be gentle, don't be a dick, and I will see you next time.